Clara Johnson was the kind of woman everyone in town knew by name. She wasn't rich or famous, but she had a heart that people could feel the moment they stepped into her diner. Her little place stood by the roadside, where the sound of trucks, cars, and motorcycles passing by never truly stopped. Travelers came in, farmers dropped by after work, and families sometimes stopped in on Sunday mornings. Clara welcomed each person the same way, with a smile, a cup of hot coffee, and a plate of food cooked with care. That particular evening, the sun was already dipping low, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple. The diner was half full, with a few regulars eating their supper. Clara moved behind the counter, filling cups and wiping surfaces, humming softly to herself. It was supposed to be just another quiet night. But life has a way of bringing surprises when no one expects them. Outside, the sound of loud engines broke through the calm. People inside the diner turned their heads, frowning. It wasn't unusual for motorcycles to pass by, but this sound was different. It wasn't just someone riding home, it was heavier, sharper, and carried a certain weight. Soon, everyone could see flashing lights reflecting on the diner's windows. Police cars had pulled up outside, and with them, a lone figure stood pressed against the wall. The man wore a heavy leather jacket, decorated with patches that made a few customers whisper nervously. On the back, in bold letters, was the symbol of the Hells Angels. His beard was thick, his hair tied back, and his hands looked rough, like someone who had lived on the road for years. His face looked worn, but his eyes told another story, one of exhaustion more than menace. The police officers surrounding him weren't gentle. They spoke loudly, their tone sharp, as if he had already done something wrong. They ordered him to move on, to get out of town. To them, his appearance alone was enough to label him trouble. From inside the diner, a few people leaned closer to the glass windows, watching with judgment on their faces. Some shook their heads, whispering that trouble had finally come to their quiet town. Others simply stared, thankful they weren't the ones outside. Clara wiped her hands on her apron, standing still for a moment. She didn't know this man, had never seen him before, but something inside her stirred. She had always believed that everyone deserved a fair chance. To her, it didn't matter if someone wore a suit or a leather jacket. What mattered was how they were treated. She noticed the way the biker stood, his shoulders slumped, not in arrogance but in weariness. His voice, when he tried to explain himself, wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting, just speaking low, almost as though he knew no one would listen. Clara's chest tightened. She could see that the officers weren't giving him space to explain. Instead, they pressed him harder, treating him like an enemy before knowing his story. The whispers inside the diner grew. One older man muttered that the biker should be locked up before he caused trouble. A young couple sitting near the counter nervously gathered their belongings, preparing to leave. Fear had already settled into the room, and no one wanted to get involved. But Clara was different. She had always taught her children, long ago, that courage wasn't about being louder than others, it was about standing up when everyone else stayed silent. She thought about that lesson as she looked out at the scene unfolding before her. She stepped closer to the door, her heart pounding. She wasn't a police officer, she wasn't a lawyer, and she wasn't anyone special in the eyes of the world. She was just a diner owner. But maybe that was enough. Opening the door slowly, she stepped outside. The cool air hit her face as the sound of the officers' raised voices grew sharper. For a moment, no one noticed her. She cleared her throat gently, and when the officers turned, their eyes filled with irritation. "Ma'am, please go back inside," one of them said quickly. "This is none of your concern." But Clara didn't move. She folded her arms, standing firm. "This man has every right to be treated with respect," she said calmly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried strength. "If he wants to come inside and have a meal, my diner is open to him," the same as anyone else. The officers glanced at each other, surprised. They weren't used to being challenged, especially not by someone like Clara. One of them shook his head, warning her that she didn't know who she was standing up for. "I don't need to know," Clara replied, her tone steady. "I just know he deserves fairness. You can't judge a man by his jacket or his beard. Let him eat, let him rest, and treat him like a human being." The biker said nothing during this exchange. He just watched Clara, his eyes softening. For the first time, he looked less like a man cornered and more like a man who felt seen. The crowd inside the diner pressed closer to the windows, unable to believe what they were seeing. Some thought Clara was foolish, risking her reputation and her safety. Others were struck by her courage. The officers, sensing the eyes of the townspeople on them, finally stepped back. They muttered something under their breath and walked toward their cars. Their flashing lights faded as they drove away, leaving the biker standing alone with Clara. For a moment, silence filled the space. The biker shifted his weight, looking down at his boots, then back at Clara. He gave her a small nod, almost like a silent thank you. Clara, without hesitation, opened the diner door wider and gestured inside. "Come in," she said softly. "You look like you could use a hot meal." Inside, the whispers didn't stop. But Clara didn't care. She led the man to a booth near the window, poured him a steaming cup of coffee, and set down a plate of warm food. She didn't ask for money, didn't ask for explanations. She simply treated him the way she treated everyone else, with kindness. The biker sat quietly, wrapping his hands around the coffee cup as though holding warmth for the first time in a long while. His shoulders relaxed slightly, and though his face remained stern, there was gratitude in his eyes. Clara returned to her counter, pretending to busy herself with other tasks, but in truth, she couldn't stop thinking about how close she had come to saying nothing. The other customers didn't know what to make of it. Some left quickly, whispering about the strange sight they had witnessed. Others stayed, watching curiously. Clara carried on as though it were the most natural thing in the world. To her, it was. To her, fairness was never an option, it was a responsibility. That night, as the biker quietly ate his meal, Clara knew she had done something small yet meaningful. She didn't know what it would lead to. She didn't know who this man truly was. All she knew was that, in that moment, she had followed her heart, and it told her to stand up for what was right. And that one decision, though she couldn't see it yet, was about to change her life forever. The night outside the diner had grown darker, but inside, the air was thick with whispers. The man in the leather jacket sat quietly at his booth, spoon in hand, slowly eating the hot stew Clara had placed before him. Every so often, his eyes lifted, glancing at the people staring from across the room. He was used to looks like these: suspicion, fear, and judgment. But what he wasn't used to was someone like Clara, standing between him and the world, insisting he be treated fairly. Clara, meanwhile, moved behind the counter, pretending to clean dishes though her hands were slightly trembling. She replayed the moment outside over and over again in her mind. The sharp tone of the officers, the mutters of the crowd, the heavy silence when she spoke, it all still clung to her like a shadow. She had never done something like that before. She was not someone who chased conflict, but her heart had pushed her forward. Now that the moment was gone, doubt started creeping in. Had she done the right thing? Would the officers come back angry? Would the people in town think less of her for defending someone they considered dangerous? The regulars inside the diner were split. An older woman near the corner whispered loudly to her friend that Clara was too soft-hearted. "One day," she said, "that kindness of hers is going to get her into trouble." Others just sipped their coffee, uncomfortable, not sure if they admired Clara's bravery or thought she was foolish. But Clara, though nervous, kept her chin up. She glanced at the man. His hands were large and rough, like stone, but they shook slightly when he picked up his fork. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, whenever they caught hers, held a quiet message: gratitude without words. Finally, after finishing his stew, the biker placed his spoon down carefully, as though he didn't want to disturb the calm of the diner. He took a sip of coffee and then leaned back, looking out the window where the police cars had been just an hour ago. He looked like a man used to storms, but at that moment, he was resting in the eye of one. Clara couldn't resist walking over. She refilled his cup gently, saying softly, "Coffee's on the house. You must have had a long ride." The man looked at her, his lips twitching slightly as if forming a smile he wasn't used to showing. His voice, when he finally spoke, was deep but surprisingly calm. "Longer than you think," he said. Then he nodded at her. "Not many would have done what you did out there." Clara shrugged lightly, though inside her heart raced at finally hearing him speak. "I just did what I thought was right. Everyone deserves a meal and a little respect." The man's eyes softened further. He didn't argue, didn't explain, just gave her a slow nod, as if her words mattered more than she realized. From across the diner, someone muttered, "She's crazy. Doesn't she know who he is?" The whisper wasn't meant to be heard, but it carried. Clara ignored it, but the biker heard. For a moment, his jaw tightened, but then he relaxed again, returning to his coffee. He was used to those kinds of words. What he wasn't used to was kindness. As the minutes passed, the tension in the diner slowly eased. A few customers left, unwilling to stay any longer in the presence of the mysterious biker. Others stayed but avoided eye contact. Clara kept working, checking on the few tables that remained, but her mind kept drifting back to the man sitting alone. At last, the biker finished his meal. He stood slowly, his tall figure casting a shadow across the booth. He reached into his jacket as though searching for his wallet, but Clara shook her head quickly. "Don't worry about it," she said. "Tonight, it's my treat." The man paused, looking at her with something unreadable in his eyes. He wasn't used to charity, and this felt different. It wasn't pity, it was genuine kindness. He hesitated, then gave her another small nod. "Thank you," he said simply. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. With that, he walked toward the door. The bell above it jingled as he stepped outside. Clara watched him go, her chest tightening. She wondered if she'd ever see him again. Something told her this moment, small as it seemed, would linger long after he left. Outside, the night swallowed him. The roar of his motorcycle soon echoed down the empty road, fading into silence. Clara stood at the window for a moment, staring after him, before finally turning back to her diner. The room was strangely quiet now. A few customers sat in uneasy silence, sipping their drinks. One man at the counter shook his head. "You're too trusting, Clara," he said softly. "Men like him don't change. You'll regret it." Clara only smiled faintly, though her heart was heavy with the weight of those words. "Maybe," she said. "But I'd regret it more if I stayed silent when I knew it wasn't right." Later that night, after closing the diner, Clara sat alone in one of the booths with a cup of tea. The world outside was still, but inside, her thoughts wouldn't rest. She thought of the biker's tired eyes, the way he had said thank you, the silence of the crowd, the sharpness of the police. She didn't know his story, didn't know if he was guilty or innocent of anything, but she knew one thing clearly: in that moment, he had been treated unfairly, and she couldn't stand by and watch. Her heart told her she had done the right thing, yet her mind worried about what tomorrow would bring. The town was small, and news traveled fast. People would talk. Some would call her brave, others reckless. But Clara had long ago learned something from her late father: doing the right thing isn't about being popular. It's about being able to look yourself in the mirror. The next morning, Clara woke early as always. She brewed the first pot of coffee, baked fresh biscuits, and prepared for another day. Customers came and went, and though a few gave her cautious looks, no one mentioned the incident directly. Still, she could feel the weight of their whispers behind her back. She smiled anyway, greeting each person warmly. What Clara didn't know was that her simple act of kindness the night before was already making its way beyond her little diner. The biker she had fed and defended had left quietly, but not without thought. He had friends, brothers on the road who trusted him, who believed his word without question. And when he told them about the woman who had stood up to the police for him, they listened closely. For now, Clara carried on as though nothing had changed. She didn't know that her life was about to be shaken by the rumble of hundreds of engines, or that her name was already being spoken with respect in circles she had never dreamed of. All she knew was that she had followed her heart. And for Clara Johnson, that was always enough. The next morning, Clara felt a strange energy in the air as she opened her diner. The usual quiet hum of early customers was accompanied by a low, distant rumble. At first, she thought it was just trucks passing by, but the sound grew louder, more constant, until the windows shook slightly with each passing beat. Her heart skipped. It wasn't a truck. Outside, the street was beginning to fill with motorcycles, hundreds of them. Clara blinked, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. The bikes rolled steadily down the street, their engines echoing off the buildings. Riders in leather jackets and helmets moved together, like a river of chrome and steel. Some waved at passers-by, others simply stared ahead, but all of them had the same serious, purposeful look. Clara's hands trembled as she turned back to the counter, gripping it tightly. She could hear the murmurs from inside the diner. A few early customers had noticed the unusual procession and whispered nervously. Are those bikers?" one asked. Another nodded, her eyes wide. "I think so. That's a lot of them, more than I've ever seen." Clara's mind raced. She didn't know why they were here. She wondered if this was some kind of trouble, some kind of warning. But deep down, she hoped that the reason for their presence was something good. Somehow, she felt it had to do with the man she had helped the night before. The rumble grew louder as the bikers began to line up in front of the diner, their engines idling now. They filled the street from one end to the other, 200 strong. Some dismounted, walking with careful steps, their boots heavy on the asphalt. Clara stepped outside, feeling the cool morning air and the heat of curiosity and fear mingling inside her. One of the bikers approached the diner first. He was tall, his leather jacket adorned with patches she didn't recognize, and his face, partly hidden under his helmet, seemed serious but not threatening. Clara stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to say. He removed his helmet, revealing a friendly but weathered face. "Miss Johnson?" he asked politely. Clara nodded, still unsure how to respond. "I'm Jake," he said. "We heard about what you did last night. About how you stood up for our friend when the police were unfair. That kind of courage, it doesn't go unnoticed. We wanted to come and thank you properly." Clara blinked. Her mouth opened, but no words came out immediately. Her hands were still gripping the edge of the counter. You mean, all of you came because of me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake nodded. "We don't forget acts like that. Respect is earned, and you earned ours. We wanted to show our gratitude." Clara felt a strange warmth spreading through her chest. She had not expected this. She had not expected hundreds of bikers to show up at her small diner just because she had defended one man. And yet, here they were, a river of people she had never met, all standing with a shared sense of respect and appreciation. Jake stepped aside, and more bikers approached. One by one, they removed their helmets, revealing faces of different ages, expressions of curiosity, smiles, and a quiet pride. Some handed over small gifts, handmade patches, keychains, and even a bouquet of flowers. Clara laughed softly, shaking her head in disbelief. She had never imagined this would happen. "I don't know what to say," Clara admitted. I did what I thought was right. That's all." "Sometimes," Jake said kindly, "doing what's right is all anyone can do. And it's not just the action itself, it's the courage behind it. That courage deserves recognition." Clara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She wasn't used to attention like this, especially not for something she considered ordinary. But she also realized something important in that moment: bravery wasn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it was quiet, a choice to stand up when everyone else stayed silent. The bikers began moving inside the diner. They were careful, polite, making sure not to crowd the small space. Clara watched as tables filled with people she had never seen before, all looking at her with a mix of respect and curiosity. Some ordered coffee and pancakes, others simply sat quietly, enjoying the warmth of the diner. The man she had helped last night arrived a little later, walking through the door with a calm, steady pace. He had a small smile on his face as he saw Clara surrounded by so many of his friends. He didn't speak immediately, just nodded at her, and she returned the gesture. One of the bikers leaned in toward Clara and whispered, "You saved him. You saved more than just one person." Clara didn't understand immediately. The man in the leather jacket, who now sat at a corner booth, spoke softly. "It's true," he said. "What you did, it wasn't just about me. You reminded all of us that there are still people out there who stand for what's right, even when it's hard. That matters." Clara sat down in a small chair nearby, overwhelmed. The room was alive with conversation now, but it wasn't tense or scary. There was laughter, the clatter of plates, the hum of voices sharing stories. She realized that this group of bikers, despite their rough appearance, was not here to cause trouble. They were here to celebrate integrity, to show appreciation in the way they knew best. As the morning passed, Clara moved around the diner, serving coffee, biscuits, and breakfast to everyone. She found herself laughing more than she had in months, listening to stories of long journeys on open roads, tales of friendship and loyalty that spanned years. She learned names she would never forget: Jake, Marcus, Tony, Elijah, and discovered that each one had a story of kindness, bravery, or sacrifice behind them. One moment stood out. A young biker, no older than 20, approached her table shyly. "Miss Johnson," he said, "my dad talks about you. About how you stood up for our friend. He says people like you remind him why he trusts the world a little more every day." Clara felt her heart swell. She hadn't done this for recognition. She had done it because it felt right. And now she saw that the ripple of one small act of courage could reach further than she had ever imagined. By late morning, the diner was full. Clara's regular customers had returned, drawn in by curiosity and the buzz of excitement. Some were wary, but others were amazed at how polite and respectful the bikers were. They watched as Clara moved efficiently behind the counter, balancing orders, pouring coffee, and managing the lively crowd with calm confidence. Outside, the engines idled quietly, a steady rhythm that matched the heartbeat of the diner. Clara paused for a moment, looking out the window at the line of motorcycles stretching down the street. She realized she had never seen anything like this: 200 strangers, united by loyalty and gratitude, standing in respect rather than menace. The man she had helped approached her one last time before leaving. He held out a small envelope. "Just a little something," he said. "For everything you've done." Clara accepted it, her hands shaking slightly. She opened it carefully to find a simple card inside. Written in neat handwriting were 3 words: "You are respected." Clara blinked, tears finally falling. She looked around at the bikers still eating, laughing, and chatting, and she realized something important: courage could take many forms. Her quiet, Everyday bravery had brought together people in a way she had never imagined, and she knew she would carry this morning with her forever. By the time the last biker left, the diner was calm again. The hum of conversation had faded, and Clara could finally sit back in one of the booths. She looked around at the empty tables, the clean counters, and the lingering smell of coffee and breakfast. A smile spread across her face, gentle but steady. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and judgment, and had come through with her dignity intact. More than that, she had witnessed something extraordinary: respect, loyalty, and gratitude in its purest form. And she knew, without a doubt, that kindness even in a small act could create ripples far bigger than anyone could predict. The day after the bikers had visited, Clara woke up with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Her diner had become the talk of the town overnight. People she had never met were calling, sending messages, and stopping by just to see the woman who had stood up for someone in need. It felt strange, almost unreal, that a simple act of kindness could spark so much attention. Clara opened the diner early, as usual. She walked inside, adjusting her apron, and looked around. Everything was normal: the tables were clean, the coffee machines were ready, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. But the memory of the previous day was still strong. She remembered the bikers' rumbling engines, the respectful nods, and the way hundreds of strangers had turned her diner into a place of warmth and gratitude. As she set out the menus and arranged the condiments on the tables, she noticed a small envelope lying on the counter. Curious, she picked it up. It was unmarked, except for a simple note inside that read, "You have made a difference. Keep going." Clara smiled, feeling a quiet pride. She had never expected recognition, yet here it was, arriving quietly in the morning light. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the bell over the door. Clara looked up to see a young woman walk in, carrying a camera. "Hi," the woman said, smiling brightly. "I'm from the local news. I heard about what happened here yesterday, and I'd love to do a story about you and your diner." Clara's stomach tightened. She wasn't used to attention like this. "Oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that," she said softly. "You don't have to do anything complicated," the reporter said kindly. "Just tell your story. People will be inspired by what you did." Clara paused, thinking. She realized that maybe sharing her experience could help others stand up for what was right, just like she had. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll do it." While the reporter set up her camera, the diner began to fill with customers. Some came to support Clara, others were curious after hearing the news. The atmosphere was lively, but it wasn't chaotic. People smiled, laughed quietly, and shared greetings. Clara moved behind the counter, preparing coffee and breakfast plates, her mind focused on keeping the day running smoothly. The reporter started the camera, and Clara took a deep breath. "Yesterday was unexpected," she began. "I did something that felt right to me. I stood up for someone who needed help. I never imagined it would lead to so much attention. But it showed me something important: standing up for what is right can make a difference, even in small ways." The reporter nodded, taking notes while keeping the camera rolling. Clara continued, her voice steady. "I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because it felt like the right thing to do. And seeing the people who came here afterward, all those bikers, made me realize that respect and loyalty are powerful things. They can spread quickly, and they can change how we see the world." As Clara spoke, more customers arrived. Some of them recognized the bikers from the day before. They shared stories of seeing the group on the street, the rumble of their engines, and the respect they had shown. Clara listened, smiling quietly, feeling the pride and warmth of community surrounding her diner. After the interview, the reporter left, promising to feature Clara's story that evening on the local news. Clara returned to her work, moving between tables, serving pancakes, bacon, and coffee. She felt a quiet satisfaction in seeing people enjoy their meals, laughing, and talking. She realized that yesterday's events had changed the diner in a subtle way. It was no longer just a place to eat, but a place where stories of courage, respect, and kindness could be shared. Around mid-morning, the man she had helped the night before walked in again. He looked around the diner, taking in the energy and the buzz of conversation. He approached Clara, smiling warmly. "I wanted to thank you again," he said. "You didn't just help me, you reminded everyone here that doing the right thing matters. And that's rare." Clara shook her head. "I didn't do anything special," she said. "I just stood up when I felt I had to." "Sometimes," he said, "that's exactly what makes a person special. It's not the big gestures, it's the courage to act when it counts." Clara felt a warmth in her chest at his words. She realized that bravery didn't always mean grand actions, it could be quiet, simple, and still make a huge impact. The man nodded politely and returned to his seat, where he quietly enjoyed a plate of eggs and toast, blending into the lively atmosphere of the diner. The morning passed quickly. Customers came and went, sharing smiles, stories, and small conversations. Clara moved gracefully behind the counter, serving coffee, refilling syrup, and wiping tables. She noticed that some of the bikers had returned. They didn't enter in a large group this time, they came individually, sitting quietly, chatting softly, and enjoying their meals. It seemed they had come back to make the diner a regular part of their morning routines. By noon, Clara had a small break. She sat in a corner booth, sipping coffee and watching the world outside the window. The street was calm again, a contrast to the rumble of engines from the previous day. She thought about how quickly things could change. One simple act of courage had drawn hundreds of people into her life, changed the atmosphere of her diner, and given her a new sense of purpose. She reflected on the lessons she had learned. Respect and loyalty were powerful, and kindness could create ripples that spread further than one might imagine. She realized that even small actions could inspire others to act with courage, to stand up when it mattered, and to create positive change. Clara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The afternoon brought a new energy. Families came in for lunch, and the diner filled with the smell of fresh sandwiches, hot coffee, and baked goods. Clara moved efficiently, greeting each customer with a smile and ensuring their orders were correct. She noticed the way people lingered longer, talking with each other, sharing laughter and stories. It was as if the diner had transformed into a small community hub, a place where kindness and courage were celebrated. Later, one of the bikers approached Clara. He had a serious look on his face, but there was warmth in his eyes. "Miss Johnson," he said, "we wanted to organize something special for you. Just a small token of our appreciation for everything you've done." Clara looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" she asked. He smiled. "It's a gathering. We want to celebrate you, the diner, and what you've taught us about courage and respect. Nothing big or flashy, just a way to say thank you." Clara felt a mixture of surprise and gratitude. She had never expected this. But she also realized that accepting kindness and recognition was part of the journey. I'd like that," she said softly. Plans began to take shape. The bikers returned in small groups, organizing tables, decorations, and a simple menu for the evening. Clara watched as the diner transformed again, this time into a place of celebration. It was a different kind of energy than before, not just gratitude, but joy, connection, and community. As the sun began to set, Clara stood at the counter, looking around at the diner filled with smiling faces. She realized how much her life had changed in just a short time. One small act of bravery had brought respect, friendship, and community into her world. She felt proud, not just of herself, but of the way people had come together to celebrate courage and kindness. By evening, the diner was full, and the gathering began. People shared stories, laughed, and expressed their gratitude. The bikers spoke openly about respect, loyalty, and how Clara's actions had inspired them. Families and neighbors joined in, creating an atmosphere of warmth and celebration. Clara felt a deep sense of joy, realizing that her small diner had become a place where courage and kindness were honored every day. The man she had helped approached her one final time that evening. "Thank you for everything," he said, shaking her hand. "You've reminded all of us what it means to be brave, kind, and true to yourself." Clara smiled, feeling tears prick her eyes. "I just did what felt right," she said. "But I'm glad it made a difference." As the night settled in, the diners slowly left, each person leaving with a sense of connection and warmth. Clara cleaned the tables, reflected on the day, and realized how powerful a single act of courage could be. She had learned that bravery, kindness, and respect could ripple out, changing the world around her in ways she had never imagined. Sitting quietly at the counter, Clara looked out the window at the empty street, her heart full. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and had come through with dignity, courage, and compassion. The diner had become more than a place to eat, it had become a symbol of what was possible when people stood up for what was right. The morning after the biker gathering, Clara woke up feeling a sense of calm she had not experienced before. The diner had returned to its usual rhythm, but there was something different in the air. It wasn't just the smell of fresh coffee or the sizzle of bacon on the grill. It was the feeling of respect, community, and connection that had grown stronger over the past days. Clara smiled as she got ready for work, slipping into her apron, and tying her hair back neatly. Today felt like a day for reflection, and she wanted to embrace it fully. As she opened the diner, she noticed a small group of bikers outside, chatting quietly and keeping an eye on the street. They waved at her as she stepped outside, giving her a warm smile. Clara waved back, feeling a wave of gratitude. She had never imagined that standing up for someone could create such a bond with people she barely knew. The bikers weren't just visitors, they had become part of a community that now included her diner, her regular customers, and anyone who had witnessed the events. Inside, she started her usual routine, turning on the coffee machines, preparing plates for breakfast, and arranging the condiments. The first customers of the day arrived almost immediately. Some were familiar faces, loyal patrons who had been coming for years. Others were new, drawn by the news stories and word of mouth about Clara's courage. They spoke softly among themselves, glancing around the diner with curiosity and admiration. Clara moved gracefully from table to table, taking orders, refilling coffee cups, and chatting with customers. By mid-morning, the diner was filled with a steady stream of visitors. Clara noticed that the atmosphere had shifted. There was a sense of warmth and friendliness that went beyond the usual small-town friendliness. People weren't just there to eat, they were there to be part of something bigger, a story of courage, kindness, and respect. Clara felt a quiet pride as she served pancakes and eggs, watching families and friends share laughter and conversation. A young man approached the counter, looking slightly nervous. "Hi," he said, I wanted to thank you. I read about what happened with the biker yesterday, and it inspired me. I just started a program at my school to help students stand up for each other. I wanted to let you know that your actions made a difference." Clara felt a lump in her throat. She had never imagined that her small act could influence someone else's life in such a meaningful way. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm glad it helped. Sometimes we just need to do the right thing, even when it's hard." As the day progressed, more bikers arrived. This time, they came quietly, without any fanfare. Some came alone, others in pairs. They didn't make a scene, they simply ordered food, shared smiles, and nodded respectfully at Clara as she worked. It was clear that they had come not for attention, but to show respect and gratitude. Clara found herself smiling quietly, feeling a deep sense of connection. Around noon, the man she had helped the previous night returned. He walked to the counter, looking around at the lively diner filled with chatter, laughter, and the aroma of freshly cooked food. "Clara," he said warmly, "I wanted to see how you were doing. You've created something special here. This diner, it's more than a place to eat now. It's a place where people feel inspired, safe, and connected." Clara shook her head, humbled. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," she said. "I just stood up when I felt it was right. But it feels amazing to see how it has affected everyone." The man nodded. "Sometimes the simplest acts have the most impact. What you did was brave, and it reminded people that kindness and courage are worth standing for. You've changed this town in ways you may never fully realize." Clara felt a wave of gratitude. She realized that courage didn't have to be dramatic, it could be quiet, thoughtful, and still have a powerful effect. She watched as the man left, smiling at the way the diner had become a place of positivity and connection. The afternoon brought a steady stream of customers. Families, friends, and individuals stopped by, some to enjoy a meal, others to experience the energy of the diner that had become a local legend. Clara moved efficiently, serving coffee, refilling plates, and ensuring everyone felt welcome. She noticed that people lingered longer, sharing stories and connecting in ways she had never seen before. The diner had become a hub for kindness, respect, and community. As the sun began to set, the bikers prepared for a final gesture. They had arranged for a small plaque to be placed near the entrance of the diner. It read, "In honor of Clara Johnson, who showed courage, kindness, and respect. May her actions inspire others every day." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she read the words. She felt deeply honored, but more than that, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her diner wasn't just a business, it was a place where values mattered, where people could come together and be inspired. One of the bikers approached Clara, handing her a small notebook. "We wanted you to have this," he said. "It's a collection of messages from everyone who visited the diner this week. People wanted to share how your actions affected them. Read it when you have time." Clara opened the notebook and was immediately overwhelmed by the messages. People had written about how they felt inspired to help others, to stand up for what was right, and to create positive change in their own lives. There were drawings, stories, and heartfelt notes of gratitude. Clara realized that her single act had created a ripple effect far beyond her diner. She felt humbled and motivated to continue being a force for good in her community. The evening continued with laughter, conversation, and shared meals. Clara found herself talking with bikers and customers alike, hearing stories of courage, resilience, and respect. The energy was uplifting, and she felt a deep sense of connection with everyone around her. It was as if the diner had become a small sanctuary of positivity and inspiration. As the night drew to a close, Clara took a moment to reflect. She thought about the events of the past few days, the confrontation with the police, the arrival of the bikers, and the outpouring of support from the community. She realized that courage, kindness, and respect were values that could transform lives, communities, and even the world. She felt proud, not just of herself, but of everyone who had come together to celebrate these values. Before leaving for the night, Clara walked outside and looked at the quiet street. The engines of the motorcycles were gone, but the memory of their presence lingered. She felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that her actions had created something meaningful, lasting, and positive. The diner would continue to be a place where people felt inspired, welcomed, and connected. Clara knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but she felt ready to face them. She had discovered a strength within herself that she hadn't known before, a courage that came from standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. She also realized the importance of community, of connecting with others, and of inspiring positive change in the world. As she closed the diner and turned off the lights, Clara felt a quiet satisfaction. She had learned that even small acts of bravery could have a profound impact. She had created a space where kindness, respect, and courage were celebrated. And she knew that, no matter what happened next, she had the power to make a difference in the lives of those around her. Walking home under the starry night sky, Clara reflected on the journey she had taken. She thought about the man she had helped, the bikers who had shown loyalty and respect, and the community that had embraced her actions. She realized that courage wasn't about being fearless, it was about standing up despite fear, about acting with integrity, and about inspiring others to do the same. Clara smiled, feeling a sense of purpose and fulfillment she had never known before. She knew that the diner would continue to be a place of inspiration, a place where stories of courage and kindness would be shared for years to come. And she felt ready, more than ever, to continue making a positive difference in the world, one small act at a time. That night, as she lay in bed, Clara felt a deep sense of gratitude. She was grateful for the unexpected events that had brought people together, for the bonds that had formed, and for the opportunity to make a difference. She realized that life was full of surprises, and that sometimes the smallest actions could create the greatest impact. Clara closed her eyes, feeling a sense of peace and hope, knowing that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to stand up, to act with courage, and to continue inspiring others. And in that quiet moment, Clara understood something truly profound, that one person, acting with bravery and kindness, could change not only their own life but also the lives of countless others. Her diner was more than a place to eat, it was a beacon of courage, respect, and connection. And Clara knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would continue to inspire and uplift everyone who walked through its doors.